My name is Mary Manson. I'm a 33-year-old part-time worker. My husband, Harry, who is 2 years older than me, and I have been married for 4 years. We don't have any children yet, but we're hoping to have some one day. Although we occasionally fight, we're essentially a happy couple that you could find anywhere. This time, we decided to buy a car. A long-awaited vehicle for personal use. Since we live in a rented apartment, we ended up getting a new car before a new house. I like cars well enough and think I enjoy driving. Right after I got my license, I used to drive my dad's 86 frequently. However, currently, since my workplace is within walking distance, I haven't felt much need for a car as a means of commuting. Harry also bikes to his office, mainly to get some exercise. Still, we've both always dreamed of owning a nice car. We had made discussions. If I get a really nice car, I might try using it for commuting sometimes. It sounds kind of cool. Kind of cool. Well, that's fine. But don't come crying to me if all the weight you lost by biking to work comes back. Don't worry. Driving a car requires focus and burns calories, so I think it'll actually help me lose weight. You and your wild theories. After much discussion, Harry and I decided that, considering the possibility of our family growing in the future, we would buy a brand new 6-seater van. It's obvious, but I was constantly excited about our shiny new car. I thought it might be challenging to get used to at first, but it turns out it's quite maneuverable and easy to drive. I immediately started enjoying my car life, going out for drives on weekends and choosing accessories for the car. True to his word, Harry began using the car for his commute now and then. Got compliments at the office for the car. They said it looks cool, he said proudly. Little did we know that our precious car would become the scene of such a nightmare. Huh? Something feels off. One day, as I was about to get into the driver's seat like usual, I noticed something felt strange inside the car. There was an odd smell. It wasn't the typical new car smell, but rather something more like body odor. While tilting my head, I used a car deodorizer. But since that day, I've noticed the smell seems to come from inside the car whenever I'm aware of it. The scent never completely goes away, and I began to wonder if it might be related to my own body odor or my husband's. I was kind of disappointed. It's a delicate topic, so I couldn't easily bring it up with my husband. When we were together in the car, I casually asked, "Hey, do you smell something odd?" However, my husband cheerfully responded, "Huh? A smell? Not at all." They say it's hard to notice your own body odor. On another day, I discovered a mysterious stain on the still new seats. I have no memory of it. Could it be my husband? I also casually asked him about it. Contrary to when I asked about the smell, he twitched his shoulders and said with a face and voice that clearly knew something, "Huh? I don't know." Way too suspicious. Is it something he feels he needs to hide from me? I was ready to forgive him if he just apologized, but my suspicion towards my husband only deepened. Is he treating the car carelessly when I'm not around? I secretly replaced the car's dashcam with one that has parking surveillance features. Then, I made it always on. In addition, I installed a small camera. At this point, I had to get to the bottom of it. I was going to catch whatever rough handling my husband was doing in clear evidence. However, what the camera captured after a while was shocking. What is this? You're kidding. It showed my husband and an unknown woman in a moment of intimacy. Moreover, both were undressed, engaging in acts too vile to speak of, inside my car. My blood boiled in an instant. I thought about confronting my husband right away but decided to calm down and watch the footage again. If I'm going to get revenge, I'm gonna do it in a big way. My husband and this woman appearing here, I decided to drag them both down to hell. I made up my mind and immediately began to act, pretending not to notice my husband's infidelity on the surface. But every day, looking at my husband's face, laughing carelessly, I lost count of how many times I wanted to punch him. And after all the preparations, the long-awaited day of action arrived. I swiftly got into the car where the two of them were in the midst of their affair and floored the accelerator, starting a hellish drive with the two of them, stunned.
No!
The screams of my husband and his lover filled the air. Now, let's rewind a bit to the day I became aware of my husband's cheating. The first thing I did was investigate the woman he was having an affair with. A woman I had neither seen nor heard of before. She didn't seem to be a coworker at my husband's company. In fact, she didn't even look like she was part of the workforce. Quite young, she might be a college student. Going after a college student. Honestly, both my husband and this woman disgusted me. I continued to monitor the inside of the car with the dashcam and small camera. From the conversations recorded, it turned out, as expected, that this woman was indeed a college student. Her name is Sarah. Aged 21. She seems to attend a private university near our home. Living alone, with her parents in the neighboring state. Both parents are alive. Honestly, I was almost worried for her, talking so freely about being just an affair partner. Given how freely she talked, she might even be bragging about the affair at college. Hey, doing this kind of stuff in a married couple's car. It's gotta feel thrilling with the sense of immorality, right? Right? Lucky my wife bought a nice car. If you lay the back down like this, we can sleep, see? You're always so impatient. Oblivious to the fact I was listening, they carelessly went on. But really, they're disgustingly gross. That's a parking lot used by all the residents of the apartment. Don't they ever think they might be seen by someone? On a whim, I searched for Sarah's personal information online and quickly found her social media account. Maybe it's what you'd call a private account. According to it, the way she met my husband was through this car. Hey, that's a cool car. Can I take a closer look? Seems like this is her usual way to close the distance and lead things further. Because on her private account, there are hints of her being involved with men other than my husband. The thrill of an affair is just irresistible. Dumb wives don't even notice. Would anyone normally post that much openly on their account? No, it's because they're not normal that they do. Probably no sense of internet literacy. Just plain stupid. Because of this, I naturally stopped driving the car. Mary, you haven't been driving the car much lately, have you? Anything on your mind? Really? Well, I thought I'd move my body and get some exercise instead of just driving all the time. Even such a trivial question from my husband annoyed me. Probably, he's not thinking deeply, like whether his affair has been discovered. Just happy he gets more time to use the car, maybe. My husband, unaware of my icy glare, made a carefree remark about maybe driving the car himself sometime. Given the car was their place for rendezvous, it was inevitable that Harry and Sarah met mostly when I was out for work. Meaning, Harry was skipping work during the day, and Sarah probably wasn't attending her college classes much either. I decided to hire a detective agency. After about a month of gathering evidence of the infidelity, the day of my revenge finally arrived. Harry, I'll be out early this weekend. I'll be back late, so just eat dinner on your own. Oh, really? Are you going with the new one? No, I'll take the old one. Got it. Be careful. Of course, I wasn't really going out. It was a ruse. I pretended to leave but actually hid in the shadows of the garage, waiting for the two of them. Earphones in. I could hear everything inside the car. It's rare for you to want to meet up suddenly. Your wife isn't around today, even though you're off? She suddenly went out. Since I got some free time, I thought I'd meet up with you. Oh, Harry, you are so into me, don't you? Poor wife. That's right. I do, Sarah. See, I even do this. Oh, Harry. Let's take it slow. Seems like they got started right away. Really, they're so active. Or rather, I knew they were loud from watching the recordings, but they're really loud in person. It's a wonder they haven't been caught until now. Maybe they've developed a sense for it from all their sneaking around. All right, let's go. I stood up and walked briskly to my car. "Excuse me." I opened the door with a click and quickly got into the driver's seat. I sat down with a thump and the seat cushion absorbed the impact. Huh? What? Who? There were clothes for two thrown on the passenger seat, so I said, getting in the way, and tossed them outside. Then, off we go. I started the engine and floored the accelerator, steering the wheel. The beginning of a hellish drive. What? What's happening? Wait, what? Mary? Still not grasping the situation, completely naked, I told them, "Well, sorry, but could you fix the seat back up? I'm planning on having more people ride later," but my matter-of-fact words seemed to snap them back to reality even more. "Hey, wait a minute. What are you doing all of a sudden? Give me back my clothes." "Mary, weren't you supposed to be out?" he confronted me. "Don't raise your voice too much. What if you distract me? I'm the one holding the steering wheel, which means I'm practically holding their lives in my hands." When I said this threateningly, Sarah gasped. "What? Is she, possibly, Harry's wife?" That's... Yes, I am Mary, Harry's wife." "Nice to meet you, Sarah." "Why, how do you know my name?" "These days, it's easy to find out all that. Your name, age, the university you attend, the address of the apartment you live in alone, that you ordered and ate a hamburger for delivery last night, and even that you have distinctive moles on your stomach and thighs." "What? Hey! That's personal information." "It's your fault for blabbing personal information where anyone can access it, isn't it? But don't worry, I have no intention of misusing it." "What?" I remembered I had also thrown their smartphones along with their clothes. If they had their phones, I could tell them to search the account name I was about to mention. Sarah's social media account and the dinner she posted last night, not to mention the slew of risque selfies. "Well, we can deal with that later." "Hey, where are we heading?" Sarah's face clouded over as the scenery outside the car window changed. Naked and with nothing to cover themselves, Harry and Sarah were huddling in a squatting position. Remembering there might be a towel blanket in the car, Harry frantically searched the back. Sharing one towel blanket between them, they looked like they were survivors of a disaster. "Isn't this, like, kidnapping? Hey, stop the car. Let us out." "I can stop, but you'd be getting out naked in the middle of an unknown city, you know? Look, Mary. If you're mad, I'll apologize, so can we talk?" So you're aware you've done something worth being angry about?" Well, it's an affair, after all. Of course, I'd be mad. It's only natural, right? And with such an empty-headed fool." I added in my mind. "You've done quite a lot in my precious car, it seems." "What? Couldn't afford a hotel room? Meeting up in such an obvious place, how thoughtless can you be?" The weird smell inside the car was from your body odor and fluids mixed together, wasn't it? I thought my nose would bend from the stench. No wonder the deodorizer couldn't completely eliminate it. If you do it every week in this car, that makes sense. You, acting all high and mighty. But in the end, you didn't notice our relationship. That's right. I noticed about a month ago. Since then, I've been monitoring you with the dashcam and a small recorder. Didn't you realize? What? Recorder? That's... The dashcam shouldn't be working if the engine isn't on. Harry and Sarah stared at the dashcam fixed in front of them. Normally, yes. But there are ways around that. Like adding a parking surveillance feature, always on, you know. You seemed completely at ease, but this past month's rendezvous is all captured on camera. So, relax. Where is there anything to be relaxed about? Camera, you say? Delete it. Right now. No can do. It's important evidence. Ah, look, we're almost at our first destination, so could you fix the seats quickly? What? Destination. Harry looked out the window. Recognizing the familiar scenery, his face turned pale. No, wait, this place is. Here we are. We've arrived. The destination was Harry's family home. In other words, my in-laws. And before the two in the car could react, the car door opened. No! Harry screamed as the person joined us. Entering from Harry's side of the door, my father-in-law. They had a demonic expression, and my mother-in-law, sitting next to me on the passenger seat, had a chilling gaze. Dad, Mom. Why? What? What? Who? Harry's dad and mom. Harry, you've really done something terrible. Really? Now, Mary, please let them out. All right, all right. Off we go. I started the car again. With the two of them frozen in shock, my father-in-law adjusted the seats, and in the second row, 3 people were crammed together, Harry, Sarah, and my father-in-law, in that order. This hellish arrangement. Dad, why? Even in this situation, I admire my husband's audacity to ask. Why, you ask? You big fool. Eek. No! When Mary contacted us, I couldn't believe my ears. I never thought you'd have an affair. That's. My father-in-law, furious, my husband, flustered. And Sarah, trying to be invisible next to them. I had already reported my husband's infidelity to my in-laws. Showing them the video recorded inside the car was worth it because I wanted solid evidence. My in-laws were so shocked they looked like their jaws might drop, then they exploded in anger towards my husband. This guy, how could he? To cheat on Mary, your wife, unbelievable. Yes. How filthy. To think our son would do such a thing, oh, I can't believe it. Father, mother, I plan to divorce Harry. I'm not noble enough to continue our marriage after this. Yes, yes, that's for the best. I'm sorry, Mary, I'm sorry. I agree with the divorce. Just thinking if my husband could do such a thing makes me sick. If there's anything we can do, just say it. We'll help with anything. I feel the same way. Mary, you're not planning to divorce him without any consequences, right? Yes. I'm going to make these two take full responsibility. My in-laws and I were united in spirit on this day. Even in such times, the car moved smoothly. Unable to endure the situation of being incessantly scolded by his parents, Sarah raised her voice. Hey, hey. I'm not involved anymore, right? Let me out. I'm fine with this. I won't let you out. You're needed at the next destination. And you, not involved? Having an affair with a married man? You must be joking? That's. I didn't know. It's not my fault. This man attacked me out of nowhere. Since then, I couldn't resist. I'm a victim. Hey, Sarah, what are you saying? You're the one who seduced me, right? I told you I was married, didn't I? What? You say you're married, but you were all eager to make a move. Don't try to shift the blame. You thought I was seriously into you? That's a joke. An old man like you. What? If I keep quiet and listen, this. Quiet. Both of you, just be quiet. When I calmly spoke up, the two of them immediately fell silent. Who made the first move or whatever, I don't care anymore. We're past that stage. And both of you were excited about this affair, so stop this pathetic arguing. It's really disgusting. I glanced at my mother-in-law sitting in the passenger seat and called out, Mother. Please search the account name I'm about to tell you on your smartphone. Understood. Here you go. First, type in capital letters. As I spelled out the account name, Sarah's complexion gradually faded. Wait, that's... Is this correct? Thank you. Please show that account to the people in the back as well. What's this? It was Sarah's private social media account I had found. Starting with a dumb self-introduction, it was filled with risque selfies and dates with multiple men. Seeing this, Harry's face also changed color. Apparently, he thought he was the only one seeing Sarah. How naive. A little research, and it was all there. Please scroll back a bit on those posts. You'll find posts that seem to be about Harry. My mother-in-law did as told, scrolling through the screen. Is this it? She then presented the found post to my father-in-law and the others. Met in the car again today. Always in the car, doesn't he get tired of it? I'm so nice for seeing him like this. Seems like he drives a pretty nice car, but no money? Spent it all on the car? It's thrilling, but kinda hurts my body. I wish he'd at least pay for a hotel, old man. A stunning array of dumb texts. Shown the account, Harry was trembling. Is this real? It's real. Sarah's genuine account. That's not true. That's not me. It's someone else. A totally unknown person's account. Is that so? Then, how about we compare the risque selfies there with your body? They're quite distinctive, so I think we can easily tell if it's you or someone else. Hush. Sarah's face contorted. Had she finally realized the extent of what she'd been doing? Too late now. Could it be? Sarah, you've been mocking me behind my back. Well, it's true that Harry is stingy. What? Harry's always been my last priority. Excuse me. Sarah raised her voice, perhaps in defiance. And Harry reacted to every word. My father-in-law silently glared at them both. The back seat was indeed a hellish place. We're almost at our next destination. As I said that, everyone reflexively looked outside. Oh. That place. Then, Sarah's complexion turned deathly pale. Hey, wait. This place. No, stop. Let me out. We're not stopping. Here we are, arrival. Please get back in later. We stopped in front of a certain house. I operated the door to open from the driver's seat. No! Sarah screamed. The door opened to reveal Sarah's parents. They were stern-faced to a frightening degree. It's a tight fit, but please, come in. I said, and they nodded politely before getting into the car. Now, there were 7 of us. Why are my dad and mom here? Sarah exclaimed, just like Harry had. Why? Maybe you should use your head a bit? It's obvious because I told them. It seems your daughter is having an affair with my husband. I had sent a certified letter to Sarah's parents' home, investigated by a detective agency, to inform them of the affair and today's plan. You! What have you done? Sarah screamed, but it was like water off a duck's back to me. That's my line. What have you done? No! Dad! An affair! And not just with one man, you've been involved with multiple men. What's with these SNS posts? Posting such pictures, aren't you ashamed? Oh. Knowing her parents had learned about her private account must have been mortifying. With 2 uproarious families aboard, we stopped at a service area, our final destination. It was the climax. I turned to Harry, smiling sweetly as I handed him the divorce papers. You probably understand by now, but will you divorce me? Well, Mary. Please, listen to me. I don't want to hear that kind of response. What I want is a simple yes or no. Then, I took out another document. This is for the payment of damages and the car payment agreement. Sarah, you need to sign this too. What? Why me too? Because you knew he was married and still had an affair. You had it coming. I'll be getting damages from both Harry and Sarah. These documents were made with a lawyer, so there shouldn't be any issues. I can't pay damages. I'm still a college student. And? You should have thought about that before having an affair with a married man. Work yourself to death. What's this about car payments? I'm charging you that since my car was used for an affair, right? I can't stand using it anymore, it grosses me out. This much money. I can't. You're gonna pay, no matter what. I'll make sure of it, by any means necessary. I stared at Harry and Sarah. They were trembling finally, faced with the reality they were confronted with. Hey, Dad, Mom. Help me out. Convince Mary Manson, please. Dad, Mom, is this okay? Your daughter is gonna be drowned in debt if this continues. Hurry up and help. Do something about this ridiculous woman. Both of them were begging their parents for help. However, their parents sharply rejected their pleas. Don't be ridiculous. Cleaning up the mess you've made is your own responsibility. It's Mary's right to demand compensation. Pay up. Don't trouble her any further. That's right. And stop bothering us. After discussing with your father, we've decided to cut ties with you. What? No way. Sarah, you too. This is your responsibility. You made your bed, now lie in it. We're not helping you at all. No. Dad. Mom. Sarah, I heard you've hardly been to college, right? Then, there's no need to pay for your tuition anymore. If you have time to meet with men, why don't you just drop out and start working right away? If you don't work, you won't have money, and you can't pay the compensation. Please! Help me, help me! Sarah was clinging to her parents, crying. Her face was a mess with tears, snot, and sweat, looking utterly pathetic. Harry, just sign this already. After being rejected by her in-laws, she pushed the divorce papers towards her despondent husband again. Hey, Mary, please, forgive me. Stop crying and hold the pen. She made her pathetic crying husband hold the pen and sign the divorce papers. She also got a signature on a pledge. Sarah, with her messy face, signed under her parents' watchful eyes. All right. You're free to do as you like now. After checking the documents, I quickly got out of the car. Harry and Sarah were left looking dumbfounded with their dirty faces. The parents, understanding the situation, bowed their heads to me as I stepped out of the car. I walked a little through the service area parking lot and tapped on the window of a familiar parked car. Mary. Well done. Really? Oh, I'm exhausted. Inside the car, my parents were waiting. I had informed them of the plan in advance and had them wait at the service area. The footage from the other car's camera was also set up to be viewable on my mother's laptop, so my parents had been watching that hell unfold as well. The continuous footage showed Harry and Sarah arguing with their parents and then being scolded again. Let's go home. Oh, can we stop by the diner on the way back? I'm hungry. Sure. My dad took the wheel and pressed the accelerator. The culmination of the revenge plan was a family drive, something we hadn't done in a long time. Afterward, Harry and I successfully divorced. As declared, Harry and Sarah were disowned by their parents and are desperately working to pay for the damages and the car. Though we communicate through the lawyer, so far, there have been no delays in payments. I hope everything gets paid off smoothly without any issues. I moved back to my parents' house. With some distance now, I decided to commute to work by train. For a while, I planned to cherish the time with my parents and take it easy. I can't get in touch with my husband at all. It seems he's gone missing after not showing up for work without notice. And our house looks like it's been burglarized. It's just a mess. When I returned from a business trip, I found out that my husband, Sean, had been absent from work without notice. No one knew where he was, and in a panic, I contacted the police. The place is quite trashed, so we can't rule out the possibility of kidnapping. What? Why would Sean be subjected to something like that? The police decided to search the house, and soon, more officers arrived, and the situation began to escalate, involving the neighborhood. I just hope he's safe. Then, one of the officers searching the second floor shouted loud enough for the whole house to hear. I've found them. One male, presumably the homeowner, and one female. A female. I rushed upstairs with my in-laws, and we saw the police peering into the attic, trying to persuade the two to come down. Soon, my husband Sean and a woman I didn't recognize came down, supported by the police, and appeared before everyone. Why are you naked? And who is this woman? My name is Jolie. I'm currently a homemaker, juggling household duties while working at the company I've been with since before I got married. Sean, my husband, was a classmate of mine in college, and we've been together for over 10 years. He was a refreshing, handsome guy popular among women, so I was surprised when he asked me out. His bright personality and good looks were exactly my type, so I said yes with a single response, and things quickly progressed to a smooth marriage. We now live in a rented house with an attic. Although Sean works for a decent company, he doesn't seem to be good at his job, as he hasn't been promoted much, and our income is modest. Despite this, he doesn't do any housework and leaves it all to me, leading me to complain to him from time to time. However, instead of listening, Sean quickly gets in a bad mood and snaps back, forcing me to always watch his mood, and gradually, I've become unable to speak my mind. Sean's personality has been this way since college, and his slightly rough edges were actually appealing to women back then. I didn't take his childish behavior too seriously, forgiving most of his worse attitudes out of affection from our long relationship. But lately, Sean has been taking advantage of my leniency, becoming increasingly reckless. For example, it was our rule to always inform each other when going out for drinks, but he started ignoring it. Going to clubs and hanging out with girls, which was forbidden after our marriage, has been happening behind my back, with no attempt to hide their contact information left openly on the table. Knowing that complaining would only result in tenfold the verbal abuse, I've had no choice but to endure, accumulating stress daily. Yet, there are people who can deal with my husband on equal footing. His parents. Thankfully, my in-laws are the only ones who can confront Sean about his attitude and lecture him on changing his ways, and every time they do, it feels like a release for my built-up stress. We've had family ties with my in-laws since before we got married, which has kept our relationship strong to this day. Whenever they see me down because of Sean's behavior, they invite me over for a lavish meal to cheer me up. I'm deeply grateful for my kind in-laws because they allow me to vent my stress appropriately, enabling me to continue with my married life. However, even my husband, who had always been such an overbearing husband, at one point began to complain less and less. Before, if I blamed him for going to clubs, he'd retort with, "I'm spending my own money, so don't complain," but recently, he's been apologizing, saying, "Sorry, my boss invited me, and I couldn't refuse." I was shocked the first time I heard him apologize, thinking I must have misheard. But as his attitude gradually became gentler, I finally felt at ease believing he had calmed down and become kinder, which also reduced my stress. But at the same time, Sean seemed to be getting busier at work. Maybe he had finally found his motivation because lately, he's been staying late at the office and coming home late. Moved by such a change, I decided to support Sean more than ever, putting extra effort into my work and household chores, striving to make the house a relaxing place for him. While we were leading a busy yet peaceful life, I was assigned to go on a business trip for a few days by my boss. "Sean, I'm gonna be away on a business trip to the countryside next week, so please take care of the house for a few days." "Oh, got it. Just a few days, huh?" "For now, yes. But it might get extended, so I'll let you know if that happens." Sean simply acknowledged, but then started humming a tune, seemingly in an unusually good mood. And on the day of the trip, Sean offered to drive me to the station, which was rare. "Jolie, take care and have a good trip. Oh, and if you come back early, make sure to let me know in advance. I'll come to pick you up." Sean was in a better mood than usual, giving me a rare smile. Thanks. I'll definitely let you know when I'm coming back. You seem really happy, though. Sean stiffened for a moment but quickly returned to smiling. No, it's nothing. You're imagining things. It's gonna be lonely without Jolie around, that's for sure. Really? Well, I'm off then. Thanks for the ride. As the time for my plane was nearing, I parted ways with Sean and headed to the platform. Wondering if he might be waving goodbye, I turned around once, but Sean was nowhere to be seen, likely already on his way back home. As I settled into my seat, I reflected on Sean's behavior from the morning till now. His insistence on letting him know if I'd return early. And that unusually cheerful smile. Even though Sean has been calmer recently, considering his past behavior, these actions felt off. During my business trip, I couldn't stop thinking about it and sent him a few emails, but his replies were slower than usual and rather curt, which only added to my unease. Luckily, my work finished earlier than expected, and I could head home right away. He told me to call before coming back, but I figured he wouldn't answer the phone anyway and would be slow to check his emails, so I decided to return home without notice. It was a weekday, and Sean was supposed to be at work. Of course, the house was locked, so I took out my keys and opened the door. I'm home. Huh? Why are these shoes here? I found Sean's work shoes, which was odd since he was supposed to be at work. Did you take the day off, Sean? Are you here? I called out, but got no reply. The house was silent, no sign of anyone around. Worried he might have fallen ill somewhere, I dropped my suitcase by the entrance and searched the house, but Sean was nowhere to be found. I decided to call his office, just in case. Hello, this is Jolie, Sean's wife. I was wondering, did Sean come into work today? He hasn't come in today. We've been trying to reach him too, but haven't had any luck. What? He's absent without notice? Okay, I'll try to contact him too. I ended the call in a hurry. Sean hadn't gone to work after all. Where could he have gone? Maybe he went out but left his shoes? There's a chance he could have been taken away in an ambulance if he was ill. Thinking his parents might know something, I called them next. Unfortunately, they also had no idea about Sean's whereabouts and confirmed he hadn't returned to their place either. Trying to stay calm, I sat down on the sofa and noticed the living room was unusually messy. It looked as if a burglar had been there right before I got home, with clothes scattered everywhere. Imagining a scenario where a bold burglar turned into a violent one, and Sean got caught up in some incident, I tried calling him again, but still, no answer. Growing more anxious, I contacted the police. I can't get in touch with my husband at all. He's missing after not showing up for work. And our house looks like it's been burglarized, it's just a mess. The police said they would come right away, and while waiting for them, I also informed Sean's workplace about his disappearance. Soon, 2 officers arrived at my house to investigate the scene. It seems they came in a police car, and seeing that, the neighbors started gathering in front of our house, wondering what was going on. The situation was getting big enough to involve the whole neighborhood, making my anxiety grow even more. Watching the police search the house was nerve-wracking, and my in-laws, worried about Sean's whereabouts, also made their way over. The place is quite trashed, so we can't rule out the possibility of kidnapping. What? Why would Sean be subjected to something like that? Hearing the word kidnapping, my in-laws and I exchanged worried glances. We'd like to check the rest of the house as well, if that's all right with you, just to make sure we cover everything. Oh, okay, please do. The search of the house meant more officers arrived, and the situation kept escalating. All I wanted was for Sean to be safe. My in-laws seemed to feel the same, and we held each other's hands tightly. Then, one of the officers searching the second floor shouted so loudly it echoed throughout the house. We've found them. 1 male, presumed to be the homeowner, and 1 female. A female. We rushed upstairs with my in-laws to find the police looking into the attic, trying to persuade the 2 to come down. Soon, Sean and a woman I didn't know came down, supported by the police, and appeared before everyone.
Why are you naked? And who is this woman?
Overwhelmed by the relief of finding Sean and then the shock of seeing him with another woman, I nearly screamed. Jolie, calm down. We'll have plenty of time to get an explanation from them. Okay? It's gonna be all right. You're right. Sorry. My mother-in-law then calmly turned to Sean.
Sean, do you realize how much trouble you've caused? The police have been searching for you, causing quite the commotion. Jolie and I, as well as your father, expect a full explanation, okay?
Sean turned pale, seemingly unable to speak, and just nodded quietly. We then moved to the living room to hear the full story. As you can see, I was cheating with this woman while Jolie was away on her business trip. Today, we were together, but Jolie came back unexpectedly, and we didn't even have time to get dressed, so we rushed to hide in the attic. We planned to stay hidden until everything calmed down, but things just got more and more out of hand. Our clothes were left in the bedroom, and we ended up being found by the police before we could make a move. Sean explained the situation in a rather guilty manner, bit by bit. While I was relieved to have found Sean, I was deeply shocked by the fact that he had been cheating. I was tremendously worried when I thought you were missing, and then you cheat on your wife when she's not home. It's a common, pathetic story, really. Everyone present was appalled upon hearing Sean's story, letting out sighs of disappointment. But now, it all made sense. The reason my husband stopped complaining to me and was in a good mood when he went on business trips was because he was cheating on me. My husband's gentleness was a temporary result of the affair, not a growth in his mental age. Realizing this, I felt deeply disappointed and my anger towards Sean began to simmer. However, it seemed my in-laws were even more furious than I was. My usually calm father-in-law was shouting at Sean, his face turning red. It was a rare sight that left my mother-in-law and me in shock, a testament to the intensity of the situation. But soon, my mother-in-law's anger resurfaced, and she harshly scolded both Sean and the woman he cheated with. The two, barely covered with bath towels, remained silent and shrunken, a rather comical sight given their nearly naked and pitiful state. Then, Sean's boss, having heard his employee had vanished, arrived late. Perhaps he rushed over after hearing my report to the police, appearing slightly out of breath and sweaty. Upon entering the living room and witnessing the angry scene, he seemed taken aback. However, when the boss saw the woman next to Sean, he stiffened. "Come on, you've got to be kidding. Why are you here? Do you know her? She's my wife." The revelation silenced even the furious in-laws, bringing a sudden quiet to the room. The naked woman sitting in Siza was indeed Yvonne, truly the wife of Sean's boss. It seems Sean's boss, who got married later than Sean, had invited Sean for dinner to introduce his wife, and that's how they met. The boss, now interrogating his wife, demanded, "Why are you naked? Why are you at my employee's house?" Yvonne initially tried to cover up with plausible lies, but when her usually quiet husband shouted, "Enough," she resigned and revealed her affair with Sean. "I fell for Sean the moment I met him because he's younger and more handsome than you. You're always so busy and never pay attention to me, so it couldn't be helped." Yvonne, an art class instructor, approached Sean saying, "I want to paint your portrait," as an excuse to get close to him. Despite desperately trying to justify the affair, her boss was furious, asserting there's no excuse for cheating.
"Both of you better be ready for what's coming,"
the boss said with a deep, menacing voice. Eek. Sean, who had seemed somewhat confident that he would be forgiven if he just told the truth, was visibly shaken by this and fell silent.
"Wait, honey. It was just a moment of folly. Please, don't think about leaving me. You are the most important person to me."
Yvonne clung to her boss in a pitiful manner, sobbing as if she was about to kneel in the dirt. However, the boss seemed unwavering in his decision to divorce, ignoring her pleas completely. Sean was scolded again by his in-laws, and Yvonne cried so hard her face contorted. Who could have predicted returning from a tiring business trip to such chaos? Watching this hellish scene unfold made me feel sick, and my head began to ache. Unable to bear staying at home any longer, I left everyone behind and took refuge at my childhood home, which was a couple of stations away. Fortunately, my old room was left untouched, and there were even clothes I could wear to work, so I decided to stay there for a while. Of course, my parents were worried about their daughter suddenly coming home. To avoid awkward questions, I explained the situation to them. They were quite angry but prioritized my feelings, offering to take care of me for a while. A few days later, Sean and Yvonne, from whom I hadn't heard anything since the incident, shockingly showed up at my parents' house. Both looked even more worn out than before, visibly distressed. I didn't want to let them into my parents' house, but I also disliked the idea of going somewhere with them, so I reluctantly agreed to talk at the doorstep. "So, what brings you two, who cheated together, all the way to my parents' house?" It's embarrassing to say, but the affair scandal got out at work, and I was fired. I've been desperately looking for a new job, but it's tough, and this is really hard to say, but we need to borrow some money. Of course, I regret what I did and have no intention of making the same mistake again. But right now, I really need money even to look for a job. Please help. After making a lengthy excuse, Sean begged me at the spot. And strangely enough, Yvonne also begged me alongside him. Watching them, I let out a big sigh. Seriously? How much more do you plan to mock me? Saying you're sorry while still hanging around with this woman? That's because we thought if we apologized together, you might forgive us. I was at a loss for words at Sean's incredible stupidity. I already knew from Sean's boss and my in-laws that Sean had been fired. And of course, I was aware of Yvonne's situation as well. In the days that followed, the boss and Yvonne finalized their divorce. As a result, Sean and Yvonne ended up having to pay a huge sum in alimony not just to the boss but to me as well. Sean had apparently been quite overbearing not just towards me at home, but also at his workplace, earning a bad reputation among his colleagues. He was often harsh and stole credit for work, garnering a lot of resentment. On the other hand, Sean's boss was known for his gentle demeanor towards everyone. Even when someone made a mistake, he wouldn't just yell. Instead, he'd work together with them to figure out a solution. It made him a well-respected figure at the company. When the company found out about Sean's affair with the boss's wife, they banded together. Exposing all of Sean's bad behavior and mistreatment of young employees led to his swift termination. Moreover, Sean was held accountable for tarnishing the company's reputation and faced a claim for damages. Our neighborhood is pretty close-knit, with a strong sense of community. The news of Sean's missing case and subsequent affair scandal spread quickly, making it uncomfortable for me to even go shopping without overhearing whispers. I'm well aware of the mess you two are in. Well, you brought it upon yourselves.
Don't be so cold. You know I didn't make much, right? So paying alimony is gonna be tough. Please, I'm begging you, forgive me.
Sean finally prostrated himself, begging for forgiveness.
After all the arrogance you showed and the affair, you expect me to forgive you just because you're short on money? Don't make me laugh. My love for you completely faded the moment I found out about your affair. And I have no intention of forgiving her either. No matter what, you're paying that alimony.
At my words, Sean's attitude took a sharp turn, and he began to angrily lash out.
Acting all high and mighty just because I'm apologizing. Give me a break. If you had just let me know you were coming back from your trip, none of this would have happened.
Sean started shouting loudly, and for a moment, I was taken aback, but I've decided I will never listen to him again. As I stood firm, not to be outdone by Sean, my father came to the entrance after hearing Sean's shouts. As soon as he saw Sean, my father lunged at him, shouting even louder.
What the hell do you think you're doing showing up here? Get lost and stop causing trouble around here.
Sean, caught off guard, was left gaping and then got slapped by my father.
Don't you dare show your face here again.
After saying that, my father turned to see Yvonne approaching Sean and looked shocked. Wait, aren't you? Yvonne, the art teacher, right? Recognizing her, Yvonne awkwardly looked away. It turns out my dad is a fan of art and had been attending painting classes as a hobby after retiring. And Yvonne, Sean's mistress, happened to be the instructor there.
I can't believe you're the one who stole my daughter's husband. You're the lowest of the low.
My father said, looking down on her.
That's right. I'm going to expose what happened to all the students in the class. Consider it settlement for the insult you've caused to my daughter. Please don't do that. I'm already struggling with no money after the divorce. I'll be out of a job if I lose my students too.
Yvonne pleaded desperately, bowing her head to my father.
The pain my daughter has suffered because of you is far greater than anything you're going through. I'll never forgive you.
My father was unyielding, and realizing this, Yvonne burst into tears. Moreover, she was also scolded by my mother, who had appeared from behind, saying, "You're the lowest as a woman." Meanwhile, Sean was forcibly stood up by my father, grabbed by the collar, and slapped hard with the words, "I'll do this in place of my daughter." Finally realizing there was no hope for forgiveness, Sean, with a bright red cheek, and Yvonne, trembling at the thought of the impending job loss, left our home dejectedly. After a while, my divorce from Sean was finalized, and I successfully received a significant amount of alimony. Because of that, Sean ended up in debt, and I heard directly from my mother-in-law that they've disowned their son. Now, he's working as a part-timer, forced into manual labor day and night, living his days utterly exhausted. On the other hand, Yvonne's business went under after my father exposed her affair to her students, leading them all to leave. Like Sean, Yvonne too is buried in debt, having sold all her designer items and now scrambling through part-time jobs, forced into poverty. As for me, thanks to my savings and the substantial alimony, my wallet has gotten quite a bit fatter. I've taken some time off to enjoy life, spending money on overseas trips and hobbies. On my travels, I've been embracing new cultures, enjoying encounters with new people, and being captivated by beautiful sceneries I've never experienced before.
It's been a time for me to reflect on myself and recharge with the strength to live positively. Huh? You've been here?
Well, yeah. I moved in a week ago and have been living in this house. I'll take the bedroom you were using on the second floor, so you can use the storage room on the first floor or the unused room on the third floor.
What? I wasn't informed about this. What do you mean?
The head of the household has given his permission, so I don't need to get yours. The person paying the rent gets to make all the decisions.
Huh? I had to ask again, but I'm not hallucinating, right?
Why is my mother-in-law living here? I don't understand. It was stressful enough having her visit every week, but living together is out of the question. Sure, my mother-in-law lives alone, and she is getting on in years. Something could happen, and maybe my husband is worried, but it's unacceptable to start living together without consulting me first. Whose house do they think this is? I wanted to say. And my husband, too. This level of presumption is just too much.
Hello? When I got back, your mom was here. What's this about living together?
What do you mean?
It's exactly as you see. There's nothing wrong with it, right? It is wrong. Why wasn't I consulted?
There's no need to consult you.
I've said it before, but I'm the one paying the rent. Shouldn't you be following my decision?
I was so astonished I couldn't say anything. So, he's serious about this. All right, if that's how it's gonna be, then keep saying it. But it seems he's forgotten something important. Does he even remember who we're renting this house from? I won't let him forget just the convenient things. I grabbed the suitcase I had brought on my business trip and went back to my parents' house. My name is Sarah, I'm 32 years old. Currently, I work for an IT company as an engineer, which provides me with a decent income and fulfilling work, allowing me to enjoy my days.
Great job today.
Huh? You're leaving already? We were planning to go out for drinks today, wanna join? I have plans already today. Could you invite me next time? Is it a guy thing?
Well, yeah.
Work was fun, and I had a boyfriend who I've been dating for 6 months. My private life was so fulfilling that I really lived a rosy life with absolutely nothing to complain about.
You're busy, right? Thanks for making the time for me. It's totally fine. Of course, I'd make time for my loved one. Thanks.
I met my current boyfriend through a friend's introduction, and he's a really nice guy who cares a lot about me. I went to a science university, so my student life was really busy, far from any romantic involvements. Even after starting my job, there was something new to learn every day, and I was so busy that I didn't have a boyfriend. But, just before my 20s ended, I got a boyfriend, and it felt like I was gonna marry him. Life was in rosy mode. I truly enjoyed every day from the bottom of my heart.
About the future. Talking about marriage? Yeah. I've been thinking about going to greet your parents.
Of course. Once work settles down, I'm gonna propose. Can you wait a bit longer?
Yeah.
I might have rushed him a bit, but I could clearly see a future where we'd get married and be happy together, and I think I spent my days grinning about it. And so, 6 months later, we got married. My parents paid for the wedding and provided us with a new home. My parents run a business and offered us one of their investment properties to use. He wanted to send money back home since he came from a single-parent family, and in that regard, my parents were supportive.
About the rent, are they letting us live here for free?
No.
They're asking for $4,000. Normally, they'd rent this place out for much more, so they're giving us a special deal.
What? They're charging us?
Even though it's their daughter and son-in-law living here.
I'm surprised.
Well, it's an investment property, so there are costs involved. My parents aren't really making a profit from this. We can't ask them to cover the maintenance costs for us, can we?
No, given they have the money, I think they could at least do that for us. I was a bit surprised by my husband's comment. Indeed, my parents run a business, so they have some financial leeway. However, I'm already independent and can take care of my own life. I think it wouldn't be a big deal for my parents to lend us the house for free, but it's wrong to rely entirely on them for money just because we're their children. As business owners, my parents have always been strict about money matters, and that's why I work and live on my own.
Well, living in such a spacious house. They said they're gonna transfer the ownership to us in the future. To expect to live here without paying anything, that's really something.
He's quite stingy, huh? If they're making money as business owners, I think they could afford to do that much.
Well, if I were in your parents' position, I'd let my child live there for free.
That's why, haven't I explained it several times? Why can't you understand? I wanted to say, but for my husband, who expected to live in a large single-family home for free, paying $4,000 every month must seem like a huge burden. Well, expecting to live for free just because it's my parents' property is quite presumptuous.
Can't they lower it to about $3,000? What? Lower it further? I already told you it would normally cost twice as much.
Even so, they could lower it a bit, right?
Come on, it's your parents, so you should be able to negotiate that much.
What are you saying?
It's exactly because they're my parents that I don't want to be rude. If you had any gratitude, you wouldn't be able to negotiate for a lower rent, right?
Seriously, aren't you grateful at all for how cheap they've made it? They even said we could move out anytime we want. If we choose to stay and live here long term, they're willing to transfer the ownership to us. Despite their cooperative attitude, I couldn't understand what my husband was saying. How can he say such brazen things so casually? Thinking only about himself must be exactly what this is.
It seems like he thought they were gonna let us live here for free. So, he thinks even $4,000 is too much. I see, well, $4,000 is really pushing it, but the lowest I can go is $3,600. You don't have to lower it any further. Showing him that we're willing to compromise to that extent might make him understand. Plus, with the $400 saved, we can send more money home. His family is a single-parent household, right? Yeah. Well, we're okay, and since you're newlyweds, you'll have various expenses. So don't worry. Just focus on your marriage.
Thanks to my father's kindness, I was able to stand my ground somewhat with my husband, and he finally agreed to the rent of $3,600. Since then, we've been living without much issue, and we basically decided that my husband would pay the rent while I would cover the other living expenses. We also bought a car for the family, and since the savings payments were coming out of my money, my husband had more disposable income. But I wasn't much of a spender, and we generally had a good life together, but
my mom will be arriving in about 30 minutes, so let's hurry up and finish cleaning. Huh? What? You're not going to clean even though my mom is coming? No, it's not that, but why didn't you tell me sooner? It's so sudden.
I didn't necessarily mind his mother coming over, but why didn't he tell me earlier? If I had known sooner, I would have cleaned the house and finished the chores earlier. We don't even have tea. Maybe he didn't think because it's his parent, but if anyone's going to be looked at strangely, it's going to be me. Why can't he think that far ahead? I sighed, but it's too late to be thinking about that now.
I'll start cleaning now, so you help too.
That's a hassle, you do it.
I finally have a day off from work, let me rest. No, but your mother is almost here, isn't she?
You can do it, right?
I've been busy lately.
No, what? What is he saying? He tells me his mother is coming over and wants me to clean, but he won't help at all? I was already irritated by such a sudden request, and now I'm about to lose it with his selfishness. I want to finish cleaning quickly because we're in a hurry.
No, you want me to do it all? That's not fair. No, you're the wife, you should be able to handle it. Why do I always have to say it? Don't forget I'm taking care of you?
Taking care of me? Who does he think he is? I'm not under the impression that I'm being taken care of by my husband. Sure, he pays the rent, but I'm the one covering the living expenses. If you look at the expenses, I'm paying more, so I don't understand why he's talking down to me like this. But arguing about it now is a waste of time. What I need to do is get as much cleaning done as possible, right now. Seeing my husband lounging on the sofa watching TV while I'm frantically cleaning was infuriating, but I managed to get the cleaning done to a decent standard before his mother arrived. I'm coming in. It's been a while. How have you been?
I'm not old enough to need your concern. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant.
Oh, is that so? No, am I being perceived as someone who would say such snide remarks? Well, this isn't the first time dealing with my mother-in-law's personality. I guess she cherishes her son a lot because they're from a single-parent family, but I've always thought her affection was a bit extreme. Even when we went to greet her for our marriage, she looked at me as if I was a woman marrying up, not really trying to build a good relationship with me. Not that I particularly wanted to be close to her, but it feels unnecessary for her to openly dislike me this much. I haven't done anything wrong to my mother-in-law. Nor have I been unreasonable. What does she have against me? Well, my husband also says unreasonable things to me, so coming from such a mother, I guess it's somewhat expected.
You know, I've been thinking, aren't your chores a bit half done? It's not like it's a hoarder's house, but I think you could keep it cleaner, couldn't you?
I guess so. I've been trying my best, but I also have a job every day, so I can't spend that much time on it.
I was a single parent too, but I managed to keep the house clean. No need for excuses.
No. I'm not making excuses. I've genuinely been busy lately, with tasks from work that didn't get finished at the office and had to be done at home. If a system we're developing has an error, it needs to be fixed before the deadline. If we don't make the fix in time, it would be a big problem. I wish she wouldn't complain without understanding anything about my job. And to say one thing, they were living on welfare. My mother-in-law isn't working, so her situation isn't much different from a stay-at-home mom. Even as a single parent, she had more time, so naturally, she should have been able to do the household chores. Comparing me to that is wrong. And, since we both work, instead of blaming just me, how about blaming her son who doesn't do anything besides his job? I didn't intend to fight with my mother-in-law, but being criticized right after she visits made me quite irritated. Maybe you shouldn't say that? Besides, I'm the only one doing the chores around here, so it's tough. That sounded a bit sarcastic, didn't it? Well, but I think she won't understand unless I say it like that. Huh? You can't be thinking of making your husband do chores? I would like him to help, but the reality is, he doesn't. You're the wife, so it's only natural for you to do the housework. And I heard that my son is the one paying the rent. So, it's only logical for you to do at least that much. Who do you think is the breadwinner of the house? If you can't even understand such hierarchy, you shouldn't have gotten married. That's why I was against the marriage. Huh? I was so flabbergasted I couldn't find the words. Is she serious? I wish she would stop joking around. It's absurd for her to butt into someone else's family matters. Talking to such a person is a waste of time and only uses up energy. I just nodded along and showed her into the living room. Hey, how about we have seafood today? There's a nice place at Fisherman's Wharf. Wow, that sounds great. Let's treat ourselves to a nice meal for a change. Sarah? We'll be waiting at home, so could you take out seafood for everyone? Oh, and add some mussels and fatty lobster for me. So, I'm being made to run errands again. And neither of them even pretends to reach for their wallets. They expect me to pay, I suppose. Well, I can see complaining about money would only bring more complaints. Besides, I'd rather get out for a walk than stay in this house, so it works out. Still, the thought of splurging on expensive seafood for them is infuriating, but it's not worth dwelling on. With that in mind, I headed to the place. Upon returning home with the seafood. You took quite some time. I wish you would consider the people waiting. Ha. She had no words to thank me for purchasing it. She's like a complaint machine, effortlessly churning out grievances. I almost admire the ability to find fault in everything. I was tempted to retort sarcastically, but I restrained myself and took a seat instead. The day dragged on lazily until the evening, when the two of them went out for dinner. I wasn't invited, but really, what rude people. The two of them came back and spent the evening drinking in the living room, and in the end, my mother-in-law decided to stay the night. We had separate bedrooms, so it wasn't too much of an issue, but I was still taken aback by the lack of courtesy. She left the next day, but my day off was ruined, and I was left feeling quite stressed. After that, my mother-in-law started visiting our house almost every week. I don't know if she's coming to make snide remarks at me or just to see her beloved son, but either way, I was living in a state of constant stress. Hey, I'm going to be on a business trip for a week starting next week. So, I'm counting on you to take care of the house. What? A business trip? Why are you suddenly going on a business trip? There's a presentation for a system I developed, and I was involved as the main developer. The business trip wasn't a lie, but I was a little excited to have some time to myself for a change. Every week, facing complaints about housekeeping, meals, and my role as a wife from my mother-in-law. No matter how busy, my husband claims to be the breadwinner and refuses to help with any household chores. I was so fed up with such a life that I headed to the business trip planning to refresh myself. The presentation for the new system was nerve-wracking and more exhausting than my usual job, but for 1 week, without anyone complaining, I felt truly at ease. After the business trip was over, I returned home to find. Huh? You're here? Well, yes. I moved in a week ago and have been living here. I'll take the bedroom you were using on the second floor, so you can use the storage room on the first floor or the unused room on the third floor. What? I wasn't told about this. What do you mean? The head of the household has given his permission, so there's no need for me to get yours. The person paying the rent decides everything. Huh? I had to ask again, but I'm not hallucinating, right? Why is my mother-in-law living here? I don't understand. Just her visiting every week was stressful enough, but living together is out of the question. Sure, my mother-in-law lives alone, and she is of a certain age. Something might happen, and maybe my husband is worried, but starting to live together without consulting me is unacceptable. Who do they think this house belongs to? I wanted to say. And my husband, too. Such presumption is truly unforgivable.
Hello? When I came back, your mom was here. What's this about living together?
What do you mean? It's just as you see. There's nothing wrong with it, right?
That's ridiculous. Why wasn't I consulted?
There's no need to consult you.
I've said it multiple times, but I'm the one paying the rent here. Shouldn't you be following my decision?
I was so astounded I couldn't say anything. So, he's seriously saying that. All right, if that's how it's going to be, then keep saying it. But it seems he's forgotten something important. Does he even realize who we're renting this house from? I won't let him forget just the convenient parts. I grabbed the suitcase I had brought on my business trip and went back to my parents' house.
It's like that, he just moved his mother in without asking me. Don't you think that's strange?
Yeah.
Has he been mistreating you like this all along? I didn't tell you because I thought it would worry you, and everyone said this was normal, so I kept quiet, but I can't take it anymore.
Right. I understand, then, I have a plan, my father said before making a phone call. From that day, I started living at my parents' house and didn't contact my husband for a week. Then came Saturday. My father and I went to the house where my husband and mother-in-law were living. When we rang the doorbell, my husband, who looked like he had just woken up, came out and frowned upon seeing my father and me.
Huh?
Here. Can you submit this divorce paper?
What? Wait, what do you mean?
I know everything you and your mother have been doing.
Stop playing dumb.
My father said, glaring at my husband, who seemed a bit intimidated. He completely cowered and wouldn't meet my eyes. But I continued talking to my husband.
You both have been bullying me. Don't think you can get away with it. No, there's no need for a divorce. We don't have to go that far.
So, what do you think you've done so far?
Acting all high and mighty, and now getting cold feet as I mention a divorce.
What do you take me for? I'm not usually the type to get so emotional and yell, but I think my husband was shocked by my outburst. But it was proof of how much anger I had accumulated.
My daughter's words will certainly be heard, and from now on, you'll be paying the full rent for this house. I have no intention of giving any discounts to my daughter and a stranger anymore.
Huh?
This house will not be $3,600 next month, but $36,000. Got it? I've brought the contract, so submit the divorce papers and then agree this contract as well. When we said that, my husband was so shocked he seemed lost for words.
The figure of $36,000 must have floored him, but we were dead serious.
How can you suddenly expect such an amount? That's crazy! It's impossible!
Huh? You think you can say it's impossible?
No, but...
We didn't even have a formal contract for this house, did we?
Once we're divorced and you're a stranger, you can't keep living here. If you can't pay the rent for this house, you should leave immediately.
We hadn't signed a contract, so we were able to leave strongly. Of course, my husband had never imagined things would turn out like this. But regretting it now is too late. He needs to take full responsibility for his actions. We remained firm, unshaken by my husband's refusal, but then my mother-in-law, who had overheard the commotion, came out from behind.
What's all this noise about?
Long time no see.
To cut to the chase, this house belongs to me, so please leave. I'm having my daughter divorce you, and I have no intention of letting strangers live here. Huh? Leave? What are you talking about? Don't say such ridiculous things.
Who exactly is being ridiculous here?
And if you want to justify your actions, feel free to take it to court.
Court! Hearing the word court, my mother-in-law and husband were surprised, but this was all part of the plan I had discussed with my father. If these two caused trouble and there was no other way, we planned to take legal action. This was my suggestion, knowing that people without common sense wouldn't understand reasonable discussions. But precisely because they lack common sense, the moment we mentioned a lawyer, both were visibly shaken. Where did all their bravado go? They exchanged glances, eyes swimming in panic. I guessed they were probably flustered.
You have a job, so you can just move closer to your workplace. That's all there is to it, right? I'm saying this because I don't have that kind of money. Don't have the money? You've got to be kidding. Given your salary, you should be able to save some amount. Are you telling me you've been blowing over $2,000 a month on fun? Well, I never thought I needed to save.
I was dumbfounded. He had a regular job, and the only expense he was covering was the rent. I was the one paying for the car and all other living expenses, so I had thought he would have saved up a bit more. He's really joking around.
That's why we can't get divorced and moving out. Right. Once you're married, it's not that easy to just get divorced. How long are you going to stick with such outdated ideas? I have no hesitation in divorcing someone as unreasonable and self-centered as you two. Are you even aware of what you've done?
Who's the one joking here? Please don't make me any angrier than I already am. They don't seem to understand how much they have put me through. So they can casually say they don't want a divorce or ask for help because they're broke. That's not my problem. And now that I think about it, maybe my husband married me for my money. Not me, but my parents' money since they run a company. He could live in a large mansion cheaply, and eventually, I would inherit my parents' substantial fortune. He must have been aiming for that, but I wish he'd stop underestimating people.
Don't forget we'll have the upper hand if this goes to court. You have 1 week to leave this house. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'll do anything, just give me another chance. I believe we can make it work. I might have misunderstood some things, but we're a married couple. We promise to overcome anything together. That's why we're getting divorced. You can't just continue a marriage with pretty words. And after betraying me, don't think you still have my trust. I will never trust you again. As I said before, we have a great lawyer on our side. Of course, you're welcome to hire your own lawyer for negotiation, but I advise against it, especially since you can't even afford to move out.
My father's point is valid. Without money for moving out, hiring a lawyer is out of the question. Even if they did hire a lawyer, getting my husband divorced and out of the house would be straightforward. That's all. I have no intention of discussing this with you any further. With that, I returned to my parents' house with my father. I had already blocked his phone number, so there were no calls, but my husband and mother-in-law kept contacting me using email, messenger, and social media messaging. I was truly disappointed and dumbfounded that they didn't understand what I was saying, but I stuck to ignoring them. I had communicated our side, and if they wouldn't comply, then we'd just have to have a lawyer handle it. Since we had strong backing, I wasn't worried at all. By the way, what happened after that? Well, tomorrow is the deadline we set, so I told them if the divorce and moving out aren't completed by then, we'd call the lawyer. Then, this evening, they contacted me to say they'd filed the divorce papers at the city court and had packed up to move out. They said they'd bring the keys here. I see. I'll take care of it then. You probably don't want to see their faces. That's right. Thanks, Dad. Thanks to my father handling the key handover, I was able to avoid seeing those two. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, those two were living a miserable life. My mother-in-law, having no job and unable to sustain a living, had initially moved with him to a business hotel for the first few days before settling into a very cheap, bathless apartment, starting a life together that was stress-filled every day compared to the quality of life they had before. Seemingly endless parental quarrels ensued. Well, but he has a job, so it's not like they're luxury problems, right? From what I heard, he's been spending recklessly due to stress, borrowing money from acquaintances. Really? Is that so? So, they've been pretty much abandoned by their friends, wondering how they'll live from now on. Without money and having to take care of his mother. I doubt anyone would marry someone like that.
Well, people of that age who don't know how to manage money probably shouldn't marry for everyone's sake.
Thinking about them being abandoned by their friends felt truly pitiful, but this could be a good opportunity for them to acknowledge what they've done and rehabilitate. As for me, I found a place to live on my own after that, and now I'm happily living there, enjoying my days. Work is going well, with significant projects that give me a sense of fulfillment, and my relationship with my parents is great. Whether I'll remarry in the future is uncertain, but for now, I'm enjoying my life. No matter how much money one might have, ultimately, relationships are what matter. If you can build healthy and good relationships, you can live happily even without money. I hope to continue living my life valuing fulfillment, friends, and family without being obsessed with money.
Where are you? The ceremony's starting.
I yelled into the phone, finally getting through to my husband, Charles.
On a family trip in Hawaii. And miss our daughter's wedding?
To that, Charles just laughed heartily and hung up. Family, huh? I repeated the thought in my mind, feeling it anew. Staring at the disconnected call, I soon shook off the feeling and reached out to someone else.
About the favor I asked for before, could you start on it as soon as possible?
I pressed on eagerly.
Yes, I'll leave everything in your hands. Please begin immediately.
Understood, came a vigorous reply from the other end. That person was from a construction company our family has been close with for years. I couldn't help but suppress a laugh, thinking, go ahead, enjoy yourself to the fullest just for now. The so-called family trip. It might be your last bit of fun, after all. My name is Patricia Green, a 52-year-old. I'm a housewife with 2 children. My husband, Charles, is 55. Our marriage, about 30 years ago, was somewhat of a strategic alliance between 2 companies. However, it's likely coming to an end soon. Due to Charles's repeated issues. Not that there were signs of this from the start. I, for one, wanted to build a warm home with Charles, even if our marriage was more about corporate alliance. Charles felt the same at the time. That changed after our 2 children were born. Soon after the marriage, I had our first child, John. Then our daughter, Linda, the next year. While children were a joy, parenting was harder than I imagined. Around that time, Charles, in his early 30s, was still training in his father's company. Perhaps it contributed to his stress accumulation. He rarely participated in childcare when home. The cries of our 2 children filled the house, and he did nothing. His interest seemingly faded, using work as an excuse to stay away. To be fair, I have my regrets too. Back then, I was swamped with childcare but insisted on doing it without anyone's help. It was my mother back home who came to my aid. Though my parents are no longer with us, remembering this makes me truly grateful for their presence. Without the housekeeper my mother arranged for, I would have completely succumbed to childcare stress. But once I got past that period, the kids really were adorable. With Charles often gone, engrossed in his work or at his family's place, childcare became my raison d'etre. Suspicious of his constant absence, I once asked, "Where do you always go?" Charles, who would usually dodge the question with vague answers, didn't accompany us for our son and daughter's events, prompting me to confront him. His response was, "You should just do as you please on that front. I have things I need to attend to." I couldn't fathom what was so important that it trumped our children's milestones. "What's so important that you'd miss your children's events for?" I snapped at him then. His answer was this.
"You know I have a younger sister, right?" "Yes, you mentioned she's 13 years younger." "Mia, was it?" "That's right, Mia. She's having an important party, and I need to discuss some things about that with my parents."
His preference for his sister over our children made me snap. "Excuse me?" But Charles, as if it were the most natural thing, retorted, "You've been so busy with the kids, you probably didn't notice, but they're going through a tough time too." I was at a loss for words. However, the same scenario repeated itself. Charles began to excuse himself for his sister's sake even for kindergarten and school events. He wouldn't attend the events but would go to her party. He'd miss our children's events but make it to Mia's graduation. Where does Charles consider home and who does he see as his family? I often wondered. I accompanied our children alone to their events. Father's presence faded from our children's commemorative photos. Eventually, the kids realized their father was absent from their important events. Later, they faced exams at school. And they started making decisions about further studies and jobs. They did so independently. They had first sought out what they wanted to do, then finding suitable schools and considering their options without much consultation. They'd only consult me to the extent of asking, "I want to go here, what do you think?" "I don't want to burden you," they said, a sentiment they expressed since school time. Having a clear idea of what they want isn't bad. It shows they're highly independent. But it saddens me to think they've learned not to rely on their father, understanding he's unreliable. I haven't exactly been a role model myself. Since getting married, I've been a full-time housewife. Sure, I'd occasionally get called in for something related to my family's business, and it seems my parents, along with my brother, were keen on leaving me some assets early on. My parents passed away about 10 years ago. Both still in their 70s. The company was left in the hands of my brother, Joseph, and I've been given a fair share of other assets from the inheritance. As for Mia, Charles's sister who he doted on, spoiled by him and our parents, she landed a job at a subsidiary through our father's connections after her college graduation. But she seemed to treat it as a temporary gig. After working for 2 years, she quit, as if it was time to prepare for marriage. It seems she never really liked working in the first place, and ended up living a leisurely life at home. And neither her parents nor her brother, Charles, said anything about it. In fact, they seemed pleased she wasn't working, as if that was too much for her. She actively sought out arranged marriages, but for some reason, they always fell through. Mostly, it seems, due to Charles's opposition. Whenever Charles objected, Mia would simply accept it, saying, "If my brother says so." Before we knew it, she was in her 40s. And she is unmarried, just continuing on as she always has. By contrast, her parents are now in their 80s. Unlike my parents who passed away early, they're still hardy and robust, but you'd think there'd be some concern. Yet, Mia does nothing, living carefree as ever. The father remains the company president, with no sign of Charles taking over. Charles might be eager to take the helm, but his father isn't budging. I couldn't tell you why. I've been fed up with Charles for a long time. Even my brother and his wife said it might be best to part ways at some point, and with the kids now independent, I'm thinking about starting a second chapter in my life. Fortunately, my parents transferred a significant amount of assets to me early on. With that, I could start something new or just take a break. I've been thinking it over for a long time. And I've been gathering evidence to ensure I come out ahead in the divorce. My brother's lawyer has been giving me plenty of advice. But then, something happened that put those plans on hold. Linda is getting married. Her fiancé is 8 years her senior, a colleague from Mike's company where she met him working as a senior employee. He's quite capable, rumored to be transferring to an overseas branch soon. Linda, having seen Mia as a cautionary tale, made sure never to disclose her family connections at work. Flaunting such things is foolish. Just like at school, showing off wealth only makes you disliked. It was Linda's reasoning. I've tried to inform Charles about the wedding. But as expected, he keeps saying he's too busy and flees the conversation. I just respond with, "Oh, is that so?" when looking at him. I still sent him the invitation and details via card or message. But I didn't bother to confirm his attendance. And on the day, we all headed to the wedding venue. But even on the morning of the day, there was no sign of Charles showing up. I decided to give Charles a call. "Where are you?" "The ceremony's about to start. On a family trip in Hawaii." I blinked in surprise at his response. "And miss your daughter's wedding?" To that, Charles just laughed heartily and hung up. I sighed and looked up at the ceiling for a few seconds. Family, huh? Family. I repeated it several times in my mind. Probably, the trip to Hawaii was with his parents and Mia. Though I knew it, this really was the last straw. To Charles, family meant his folks back home, not us. Of course, I've known this for a long time. I had no expectations from a marriage of convenience. He probably felt the same. The difference between Charles and me was that I initially tried to make a family. And Charles did not. Continuing this charade for over 20 years was for the children's sake. The children themselves might not have cared whether their father was present or not. Still, I wanted to maintain some semblance of normalcy until they became adults. That might have just been my pride. The children might have found it easier without such pretenses. Well, that's fine. Taking a deep breath, I made another call. Speaking to a distant voice on the other end, hello, it's me. Yes, Patricia Green. About the matter I asked you before, could you please start on it as soon as possible? I spoke rapidly. Yes, I leave everything in your hands. Please start immediately. Understood, came a spirited reply from the other side. The person on the other line was from a construction and architecture company our family has been associated with for years. And I thought to myself with a suppressed laugh, go ahead, enjoy yourself to the fullest just for now. The so-called family trip. This might be your last bit of fun, after all. Then, a month later, I received a call. I answered on my tablet. There, a lawyer beamed at me with a full smile. Mrs. Green, or rather, Ms. Williams, would be more appropriate now. The lawyer called me by my maiden name. So, the documents have been processed, then? My voice perked up unexpectedly. Yes, I've made sure to compile everything properly. The lawyer on the screen has been affiliated with my family's company. Continuing, I asked him, could you tell me what's happened in these last 2 weeks? Anticipating that you'd ask, I've prepared all the necessary information. I couldn't help but smile gleefully at the lawyer through the screen. Right now, there's a distance half the globe's circumference between me and the lawyer. Yes, I've bought a house in Russia and am living here. This is because my daughter's husband was transferred to an overseas branch, as had been mentioned before their wedding. According to Linda, he was so concerned about my language skills. But, you won't know until you try, and once you're there, you'll manage somehow. So, it's going to be fine. I've always made do. She had said confidently, and the newlyweds are living in Russia, at the branch now. And I'm living in a separate house on their property. Partly for security reasons. The lawyer I'm seeing on my screen seemed to have adjusted some equipment on his end. First, here's this. He showed me what had happened during Charles and their Hawaii trip. Hold on, why can't we get into this hotel today, was his father shouting. Under a bright blue sky, he was wearing an aloha shirt. I'm sorry, but today we have an exclusive wedding and party booking. What? The top hotel on the Big Island? Yes, that wedding on the Big Island was Linda and her husband's. Though Charles and his family had flown from New York to Honolulu and then to Maui, we had directly gone to the Big Island of Hawaii. We planned to enjoy the resort leisurely before the ceremony. They had no idea about any of this. Even so, I had made sure to inform them on the day, but it was ridiculous they didn't even know we were on the Big Island. It really showed how little they cared about us. It's strange, said the lawyer. Patricia, you did inform them of your destination, right? I did, through postcards and messages. They usually don't catch me, so it was kind of surprising the call got through on the day of the wedding, probably for their family trip showcase. The lawyer laughed at that absurdity. I made it clear we were having the ceremony abroad, here at this hotel on the Big Island. Yet, there they were, in front of the hotel, clueless they couldn't stay. They could have at least said they were attending the wedding. In the video, the disgruntled family could be seen complaining. Mia's confused face, not understanding what was being said to her, was also visible. Picking up whispers from the surrounding staff, I heard them say those were the people supposed to attend the ceremony today. Indeed, we had instructed the employees to do so. If these individuals arrived and claimed they were here for the ceremony, let them in. If not, just here for a meal or stay, then, as we had the place booked for our wedding, they should not be allowed in. The ceremony was held grandly, and my daughter, her husband, and we left for Russia from Hawaii's international airport that same day. We had no intentions of returning to New York anymore. Meanwhile, furious, they seemed to have intended to return to New York from the same airport. But they were stopped there. Because Charles's card had been deactivated. Moreover, staff that had followed them captured this moment on video.
What do you mean? My credit can't be used? This one, too?
Indeed, sir. The card is not in your name, correct? Indeed, that was the case. Charles had taken my credit and bank debit cards, so I had them stopped. That bank account contained my personal assets. Charles had tapped into it. Though I pretended not to notice. Doing so was bound to be discovered eventually. I had a separate account set aside that I could freely use, so even if one was depleted, it wouldn't impact my lifestyle. I overlooked it to gather evidence.
Damn, why has it been deactivated?
Of course, because the owner stopped it, right?
If you say that, we can't go back. We don't have that much cash.
Seeing Charles getting angry, the staff sighed, anyway, these cards are unusable, so you cannot board the flight back to New York, and turned them away from the airport. Then, they had no choice but to return to Honolulu and borrow cash somehow. Attempting to borrow from acquaintances first, which also took some time. Their scheduled stay had already passed, leaving no room for pride. After all, the reason was the stoppage of the cards. Deemed to have problematic behavior, they were slightly detained. Barely making it back to New York, they refunded the travel fares from their account, but upon returning home to complain to me, they found nothing there. The sight of them, especially Charles yelling in front of the now empty lot, was too much. I couldn't help but laugh. "What is this?" Charles screamed in front of where the house used to be. And his parents dropping their luggage. Our home was built nearly 30 years ago by my parents as a new house for our marriage. It was well maintained and could have been sold if desired. But as it was my possession, and I intended to live in Russia, I wanted nothing left there. So, anything clearly belonging to Charles was stored in a locker, and everything else was disposed of by a service provider. That was the other call I made on the day of the wedding. What on earth? Charles was scratching his head on the spot, stomping his feet, and eventually fell to his knees, pounding his suitcase furiously. Seeing that, I couldn't help myself and burst into loud laughter. Hearing my laughter, Linda came over. "What's going on, Mom?"
Just look, Linda. Your father is having quite the meltdown.
"He's not my father anymore," Linda said as she stared at the screen I was pointing to. On the screen was an empty lot with a for sale sign, beautifully cleared. "Ah, that's where our house used to be. Completely emptied out," Linda said with a wry smile. This girl, during her teenage years, seemed to find her father, who excessively doted on her aunt, utterly creepy. I knew she always said she wanted to cut ties as soon as possible.
I'm glad it brings joy to your daughter.
He continued.
No, seriously, thank you for the entertaining footage. But that's not all, right?
I asked.
Indeed, that's not all,
the lawyer said with a mischievous grin. Next is this, showing Charles with a frustrated look, glaring at something. The lawyer commented. What on earth is this? A slam on the desk could be heard. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Your wife, Patricia, asked for the divorce papers to be filled out.
Patricia would never say such a thing.
Why would you say that? Charles started to say something, then seemed to have a realization.
That's right, the cards. Why on earth did she stop the cards?
That's obvious, the lawyer replied matter-of-factly. Anyone would do the same if they found out a significant amount of money was being used from their account without permission. Why were you using Patricia's cards in the first place? Didn't you have your own? Charles just muttered a stifled sound and fell silent.
Or was it that you didn't have enough leeway in your finances?
We had looked into that area as well. Honestly, there wasn't much money in Charles or his parents' accounts at the moment. Just a small portion for company operations, and everything else had been siphoned from my savings. He took my card with the selfish interpretation that it was family money. I never gave permission. So, when I said to stop it, that was the end of it.
Moreover, after stopping it, we found out a significant amount was embezzled. Embezzlement? No, this was supposed to be marital assets, right?
That's not correct. What are you talking about? Didn't you know? The lawyer asked, puzzled.
The funds you were using were Patricia's personal assets from before the marriage.
From before our marriage?
No, that can't be right. Patricia never said anything like that. She probably didn't feel the need to mention it, as long as nothing happened.
But something did happen, didn't it?
What do you mean?
Charles stood up abruptly.
Patricia said there's no meaning in being a family with you anymore. At least, your children no longer consider you their father. What are you talking about?
That's to be expected.
Do you even know which universities your daughter and son went to, what they studied, and who they married? And most importantly, do you know where your daughter's wedding took place?
Charles was at a loss for words. The lawyer then informed him about the day and location of Linda's wedding. Charles's expression changed drastically. Could it be, he murmured under his breath.
Yes, the hotel you tried to stay at that day.
That place, Charles leaned forward.
Didn't you hear there was a wedding happening that day? Sure, but I never imagined that the wedding. Why didn't they let us in then?
It's quite simple. The lawyer explained the instructions I had given to the hotel.
Patricia had already informed you. Why don't you check your smartphone? Haven't you checked it all? Or did you have another phone?
Bombarded with questions, Charles remained silent. It makes sense he couldn't connect. Charles probably had multiple smartphones. And he kept the one that could reach me turned off. The continuous lack of read receipts on messages sent had been anticipated. Asking if he had changed his phone would have yielded a new number at best. I deliberately chose not to ask. It was all part of my plan. The evidence of the messages I had sent remained. I had left numerous voicemails. I made sure to sound increasingly agitated, questioning if he was listening, wanting him to see. The same went for the messages. All other methods had been attempted. Yet, Charles had shut out everything that could connect to me. So, the lawyer continued.
Patricia will also be filing a lawsuit against you for the misuse of funds, and for neglecting the family, she'll be seeking damages. Oh, and I heard from your family that the financial support for the company will be cut off as well. That can't be! Let me see Patricia, please!
Charles pleaded, almost crying. That's pointless.
Why? Where is Patricia now? She's certainly not in the USA anymore.
Charles's face at that moment was unbearable to watch.
After the wedding, Patricia and everyone immediately headed to Russia. Huh? And you were detained, right? By then, they had already leisurely made their way.
Hearing this, Charles was visibly shaking with clenched fists. Watching from the side, Linda couldn't help but let out a suppressed giggle. Seeing our reaction, the lawyer asked, "How do you find it?" "Extremely entertaining footage." "Do you have more?" I inquired. "Yes, I do," the lawyer responded.
This was recorded recently when the corporate alliance was also dissolved following your finalized divorce. Joseph and I had gone directly to their company.
He showed me another video.
The funding is cut off? What does that mean? Our company can't survive without your support.
This time it was the in-laws who were outraged. Both had faces well tanned from the sun.
Yes, well, what's with the suntan? Did you go on a trip somewhere?
On the screen, Joseph was asking the FIL.
To the wedding,
Linda's?
Yes. Linda's wedding. It was in Hawaii.
Joseph smirked.
Actually, I was there that day too. The two in-laws gasped. Of course. It was my lovely niece's wedding. My wife and I attended the ceremony on the Big Island that day. Oh, and by the way, I'm well aware of what you were doing that day too.
Sweat streamed down the in-laws' faces.
Moreover, you couldn't immediately recall Linda's name, could you? How much interest do you really have in those kids?
Joseph seized the moment to press them further.
For having just 2 grandchildren, not even remembering one of their names, what does that say about you? Well, those kids never warmed up to us. Warmed up? Have you ever done anything for them?
They were both at a loss for words. But then, suddenly, there was the sound of someone bursting into the room.
Wow, heavyweight, impressive. How old is this person now?
Linda gasped, voicing her surprise. The screen abruptly showed Mia.
She's 42, actually. My husband's 10 years older than her. Oh no! She was a parasite single then.
Indeed, by today's terms, that was exactly it.
Thinking about it, she's been living as a parasite single for 20 years. So, what's she going to do now?
I turned back to the screen. How are we supposed to survive if the funding is cut off? What am I supposed to do? Mia was confronting not the lawyer, but her parents. What's going to happen? Well, the divorce is finalized, and as such, we have no reason to finance you anymore, the lawyer said.
What? Why did you let the divorce go through? Don't you get it yet? There were many reasons, but the clincher was the embezzlement by you folks. But it was marital assets.
Joseph sighed deeply.
Charles said the same thing. Well, of course, we were concerned, so we had already gifted Patricia her assets before the marriage as a living will. Does that mean you didn't trust us? Trust? There's no trust to be had with someone who misuses their spouse's property. Besides, how long have your son neglected his wife, daughter, and children?
The in-laws were at a loss for words.
Even I, as their uncle, attended their important events. Of course, Patricia came to our house too. Well, the fact that we stopped talking about such matters long ago probably means they stopped considering you family a long time ago.
Joseph seemed to relish calling out the in-laws.
Just as you deluded yourselves into thinking those 3 were a different family. Oh yes, Charles told Patricia on the day of the wedding he was going to Hawaii with family.
The father-in-law looked up in shock, and the mother-in-law covered her face.
Family? Whose family, I wonder?
Joseph directed a very pleasant smile at the in-laws and Mia.
That was the final blow. How was it? Thank you. I'm very satisfied. Please proceed with the next steps. There's not much in the way of procedures left, to be honest.
Linda and I exchanged smiles at the lawyer's words. Later on, the lawyer kept us updated. Joseph also reached out from time to time. Firstly, the in-laws' company, unable to secure funding, was on the brink of bankruptcy and was absorbed by Joseph's company. Saving the employees was a must. The assistance to their company was originally because of the quality of what the employees made, not because the in-laws' management was any good. I hadn't heard much about this from the parents, but Joseph explained it anew. The father-in-law was ousted from his position as president. The in-laws sold some land they owned and moved to a rental. Now, they're pondering their future. They apparently aged significantly by the ordeal and facing health issues due to stress. And Charles, belatedly fussing about reserving a spot in a nursing home. He finds it financially challenging to do so now. Charles somehow managed to secure a re-employment opportunity at an acquaintance's company. Given their past relationship, the acquaintance reluctantly agreed to hire him. However, after learning about the divorce and realizing Charles was untrustworthy, his position was downgraded from a permanent employee to a contract worker. It's a clear message: any wrongdoing, and he's out. Though I think it's still too lenient, for the sake of repaying his debts, I hope he keeps the job. As for Mia, well, that's a whole other story. She's currently living in a rental with her parents. After spending 20 years as a parasite single, she's practically incapable of doing anything. Yet, as their savings dwindle, her desperate parents have persuaded her to start visiting the job center. However, her job expectations are too high, making it difficult for her to find employment. Well, that's to be expected. I thought about the possibility of her getting married, but, of course, that's a high hurdle too. I can only marvel at how she spent those 20 years. Meanwhile, our life in Russia is incredibly bright and refreshing. Living abroad comes with its dangers, of course. John, still in New York, calls often, worried, but I reassure him each time that we're okay. I even tell him to visit us sometime, hopefully with a wonderful wife in tow, which makes him shyly evade the suggestion. As long as we choose a safe area, life here is serene. Learning Russian slowly, getting along with other American families, and enjoying the sunny, dry climate makes every day an adventure of pondering, what shall we do next? Divorce has its timing. I won't say my 30 years of married life were all bad. But letting go now has opened up a new chapter for me. I look forward to a fun and energetic life with my daughter and her husband. Jessica, you're in charge of the family dinner tomorrow. Housework and child-rearing have always been the wife's job. I work to support us, so no complaining, okay? Tawny, my husband, said this with a sickening grin as he dumped the responsibility of raising their twins on me. Raising twins was already a handful, yet there was a dinner for 15 relatives. And he was leaving it all to me. I work, so everything else is your job as the wife. That had become a common refrain from her husband. He had no idea how hard it was to care for 5-month-old twins. But that wasn't the only thing he was clueless about. Facing his creepy smile, I replied as if to confirm. The family dinner tomorrow? What are you talking about? The relatives are coming today. Huh? What are you on about? The family dinner is definitely tomorrow. Stop talking nonsense and start preparing now. I'm heading out. Going out again today? Must be nice to have such leisure, as if you have a millisecond to spare. Right after, I felt a violent shock that made her whole body tremble and fell to the floor. He had kicked her in the stomach. Her phone also dropped to the floor with a thud, and as she scrambled to pick it up, her husband, looking demonic, blocked her way. Hey, what are you thinking, kicking me all of a sudden? It's lucky the baby wasn't close by, but think a little more, will you? It's your fault, Jessica. You talked back to me. You should just be grateful and listen to me. I'll say it again, stop spouting nonsense and get ready for the dinner. Despite the shock of being kicked and the exhaustion from sleepless nights of childcare, her resolve was clear. I had to make this man regret it for life. Besides, he told her to prepare, but she had already done so. He would be the one receiving the ultimate hospitality. Just watch. I would make him understand, thoroughly. As I thought this, he headed towards the front door, but just then, the doorbell rang perfectly on cue. With an annoyed expression, he answered the intercom, which quickly turned to surprise. Because there, on the screen, were his in-laws and relatives. Just as I had said, the relatives had arrived today. Sensing something was happening behind his back, he turned to me and threw a sharp glance. When I remained silent, not reacting to his stare, he muttered, "The family dinner is supposed to be tomorrow," and slowly opened the door, only to be met with an even bigger surprise. Behind his parents-in-law stood all 15 relatives, their faces red with anger. There were relatives who hadn't planned on attending the dinner, so his confusion only grew. What's going on, everyone? Isn't the dinner tomorrow? Why the angry faces? Did something happen? Did something happen, you say? I see, you haven't heard anything yet. Haven't heard what? Anyway, I'm about to leave, so if there's something, talk to Jessica about it. No, you're not going anywhere. Let's continue this inside. Ignoring his words, the relatives started entering the house one after another. He seemed unable to confront his relatives, watching them with a flustered look, but eventually, he sighed, closed the door, and returned inside. He still couldn't grasp the situation, but he seemed to sense the ominous atmosphere, showing a scared expression that he normally never would. Is everyone ready? Then, let's begin. Tawny, sit down in front of us. What? Sit down? Why? Like I said, I have things to do after this. Just sit down, now. Hurry up. He didn't understand at all, but Tawny, unable to stand up to his in-laws, begrudgingly sat down while muttering complaints. At the same time, all 15 relatives formed a circle around him, creating a sense of no escape, and his expression darkened further. Having confirmed his expression, I, along with the in-laws and relatives, focused our gaze on him as we exchanged nods. Listen, Tawny. Answer my questions honestly, without any deceit, okay? Why the sudden visit and all these questions? You're scaring me. I don't need such a warning. I don't lie to anyone. You said it, don't forget what you just said. So, first question, how's work going? I've landed a big contract recently. I'm being recognized at the office. I see. Second question then. How are the twins doing? No problems at all. They're growing up well. I see. Now the last question. How is your marriage with Jessica? No issues there either. Jessica safely delivered the twins and is perfect with housework and childcare. She's a good wife, supporting her husband. The moment he finished speaking, he looked around and noticed something was off. This Q&A had made the relatives' faces even more stern, glaring at him with icy stares. Tawny, I want to confirm one more time. Did you answer my questions truthfully? Yes, I haven't lied at all. What's this about? I don't understand. His tone grew firmer, perhaps due to the repetition. But then, the father-in-law raised his voice even more. Don't play dumb. Everything you're saying is full of lies. Tawny became flustered under the father-in-law's fierce demeanor. Ignoring Tawny, the father-in-law looked at him with a piercing gaze, full of conviction. Tawny, you've been bullying Jessica, haven't you? We all know about it now. Huh? Bullying Jessica? On what basis? Are you saying that's why you asked those questions? Gathering everyone here just for that. I'm not bullying her. That's impossible, right, Jessica? Tawny turned to me, his eyes pleading not to say anything unnecessary. The old me would have been too scared of my husband to do anything. But if I continued to obey him, not only would I be miserable, but so would our relatives, and most importantly, our children. I realized I had to change, and with firm resolve, I began to reveal everything. Tawny, lying is useless because, as your father said, we all know. We know how you've been pushing child-rearing onto me, verbally abusing me, and neglecting the family. What are you talking about, Jessica? There's no way I would do such a thing. Correct it now. You're confusing the relatives. The relatives are confused about your true nature. You've been playing the good husband all along, haven't you? Just to avoid their suspicion. My true nature? What are you talking about? Surely, everyone isn't taking what Jessica is saying seriously, right? Tawny appealed to the relatives again while looking around, but their expressions only grew more stern. He was the only one who didn't understand why this was happening. On the contrary, we all knew everything. To make him understand, the father-in-law spoke up. Haven't you thought about why we are all gathered here? Are you still planning to lie after hearing this? Pulling out his smartphone, the father-in-law asked Tawny while playing an audio recording. Jessica, you're in charge of the family dinner tomorrow, too. Housework and child-rearing have always been the wife's job. I work to support us, so no complaining, okay? Tawny's words to me earlier echoed clearly from the smartphone. His mouth agape, he looked around in disbelief. When he had kicked me, I had my smartphone with me, recording the incident. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment action, but a result of consistently recording to gather evidence of his bullying. Meaning, there wasn't just one recording. All of them had been sent to the relatives, so the father-in-law played another audio clip. Just a housewife and yet you serve this terrible food? Make it again, fast. If you defy me, we can just get a divorce, right? You'd be the one in trouble, wouldn't you? Tawny's vile words filled the room, silencing everyone. In contrast, Tawny began to panic and started to rant. Jessica, you don't mess with me. Like I said before, lying is pointless. Everyone is here today because I sent them the evidence of the bullying all at once. Finally grasping the situation, Tawny was trembling and his face turned pale. Meanwhile, the relatives' anger became even more apparent, each with deep furrows between their brows. In the tense atmosphere, the father-in-law stepped closer to Tawny. Tawny, you seem to finally understand the situation, huh? Now, tell us everything. Why have you been so harsh on Jessica? From what we've seen, there's no reason for Jessica to be treated like this. What's going on? Tell us. Tawny looked thoughtful, as if searching for an escape route. A sign that he was still only thinking of himself. Unaware of my contemptuous stance, he took a deep breath and nervously began to speak to the father-in-law. It's the job. Actually, things haven't been going well at work. I didn't secure any big contract. In fact, I haven't been achieving anything significant. It's been a growing pressure and mentally draining. I couldn't say anything because I didn't want to let everyone down. Tawny choked up as he spoke of his troubles. He had secured a position at a well-respected company, held in high regard by our relatives. From childhood, through his school years, he worked diligently and never complained, according to what the in-laws and relatives said. I started dating him after I began working, and back then, he was serious, kind, and cherished his family. But 3 years into our marriage, Tawny changed. Yet, he continued to act the same around the relatives, so no one noticed until now. There were times before, even before we were married, when work didn't go well. I kept telling myself I needed to work harder, but I just couldn't get any results. It had nothing to do with Jessica, but I took out my frustrations on her. It was my way of venting. I'm the worst. I'm really sorry. So all those times you visited Jessica in the hospital, it was just to deceive us. Tawny did not refute the father-in-law's words. That meant he was admitting to it. His visits were just to play the good husband, probably not caring about me or our children at all. When I gave him a look of disdain, Tawny sheepishly looked down and then started apologizing profusely, bowing deeply to the floor. Jessica, forgive me. I'll change my ways right this moment. I'll be reborn. Can you give me another chance? Tawny's face was earnest, filled with true remorse and a desire to make amends. But in the next moment, I couldn't help but laugh. The relatives around us were all appalled, some sighing deeply, others shaking their heads or making gestures of disbelief. If they had known nothing, maybe someone would have forgiven him. But that was only if they knew nothing. Tawny noticed the odd reactions and was puzzled, not understanding why I was laughing or why everyone was so appalled, furrowing his brow in confusion. That's when I decided to give him the answer, an important one for my revenge. The thing is, I didn't just send evidence of the bullying to our relatives. Look at this, I sent this to everyone as well. Showing the smartphone screen to Tawny, his face drained of color as fast as the sound could escape. On the screen was a photo of a smitten Tawny with a young, beautiful woman. Jessica, what is this? When did you? And you sent it to all the relatives. Really? Yes, really. Along with the evidence of your bullying, I also sent photos of your affair. She's quite a beautiful nurse, isn't she? I thought she was a model or an actress at first. Tawny had apologized to me and the relatives while hiding the fact of his affair, claiming he wanted to change. I laughed at the pathetic nature of such a man. The relatives, aware of the situation, were naturally appalled. You intended to keep denying it if we said nothing, didn't you? How foolish can you get? Pretending to visit but actually cheating with a nurse. It wasn't about deceiving us, your goal was the affair. How could you cheat while Jessica was about to give birth? The relatives, like the in-laws, expressed their grief and anger. Tawny, who kept piling lies upon lies, looked utterly ridiculous and beyond redemption. Desperately searching for excuses, he seemed not to have imagined that I knew about the affair, unable to find any excuse that could save him in this situation, his eyes darting around. So, Tawny, you had plans to go out today, but it was to meet your affair partner, right? No, that's not it. It's a misunderstanding, Jessica. Just talking to her at the hospital. Being suspected over that. Besides, just a photo on the phone isn't conclusive evidence. Really? Just talking at the hospital, huh? I've known about your affair since before I was hospitalized. When I started wondering why you changed, it all became clear. And by the way, the evidence of your affair isn't just in the phone's photos. I hired a detective, so I have plenty of proof. I handed Tawny an envelope that I had prepared in advance, and with trembling hands, he pulled out its contents. There were loads of photographs from the investigation report, showing him in the act of cheating. I chose the hospital where your affair partner works as part of the plan. You cheated openly, not knowing anything. It's unbelievable. You chose the hospital just to keep an eye on me? That's going too far. Why would you go to such lengths? You did something terrible, Tawny. It's not just because of work pressure or stress, right? You were planning to make me miserable and drive me to divorce, weren't you? How can you do such a thing after having children? That's not something a decent person would do. The relatives surrounding us nodded in agreement with sorrowful expressions. The mother-in-law finally broke down crying, and the father-in-law hurried to comfort her. Even Tawny seemed shaken by his mother's tears, visibly panicked. Observing this, the father-in-law glared at Tawny fiercely while consoling his wife. The only path left for Tawny was to tell the truth, apologize, and take responsibility. Yet, even here, he was only thinking of himself. I admit to the affair. But it was just a moment of weakness. It's normal for a man to have an affair once or twice, right? You all understand, don't you? The only person I truly love is Jessica, understand? In a desperate attempt to douse the fire, Tawny was essentially tightening the noose around his own neck. Such foolishness. But I also regret not realizing his true nature sooner and continuing our marriage. I was wrong to only see the surface-level image of him. However, the most important consideration should be the children. They might need a father, but the man in front of me cannot be that father. What I can't forgive the most is how you neglected the children. I want Tawny to live with regret and reflection for the rest of his life. That's my wish. Along with the divorce, I'll be seeking alimony and child support, and I will report everything about Tawny to his company. Tawny, we wanted to believe in you. But in the end, you piled up lies and excuses. Do you think it's okay to do anything as long as you're fine? We are profoundly disappointed. Never cross our doorstep again. Don't even think about running away anymore. We are all watching you, Tawny. At that moment, Tawny froze as if time had stopped for him. He might have imagined the divorce, alimony, child support, and the report to his company, but being disowned by the relatives was probably beyond his expectation. He thought the relatives would always be his allies. That belief was his last fortress, the reason he continued to play the good husband. He thought he could manipulate me with excuses and lies as long as he had the relatives on his side. However, the one true thing Tawny always had was his desire to meet the relatives' expectations. Just as they gathered today for me, the in-laws and relatives are kind people who act for others. Tawny, having grown up with them, should understand this better than anyone. His efforts to live up to their expectations were genuine. But that's why I wished he hadn't betrayed them like this. It's too late for amends, but still, Tawny needs to reflect and regret. Disowned even by the in-laws, he finally became subdued. His chattering teeth and trembling figure were probably signs that he finally understood the gravity of the situation. Wait, Jessica, we're still married, right? I was wrong, so please reconsider the divorce. Dad, Mom, please don't disown me. We're family, aren't we? Parents are supposed to care about their children, right?
Parents are supposed to care about their children, huh? Tawny, ask yourself. Who neglected their newborn children? Don't use your family as a convenient excuse.
You also said this to Jessica, right? That housework and child-rearing are the wife's job, and since you provide, she shouldn't complain. Can you call that a marriage? You need time to face yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to lead a decent life from now on. Tawny fell silent with a grimace, looking around with pleading eyes, but everyone present could not forgive or accept his foolish actions. Their gazes were cold and filled with sorrow, yet there seemed to be a hint of kindness, as if they wished Tawny would realize his mistakes. I shouldn't have had an affair. I should have cherished Jessica more, the family more. What have I done? After witnessing Tawny's words of regret, one by one, the relatives began to leave. Tawny weakly reached out, but no one took his hand, and even the in-laws left the house. I told Tawny I was going back to my parents' house with the twins and headed for the door, leaving him behind. Left alone, Tawny could only mutter words of apology to no one in particular. Afterward, I proceeded with the divorce through a lawyer, seeking as much alimony and child support as possible, determined to ensure payment. Although adultery is a private matter and he wasn't fired from his job, the rumors quickly spread within the company, and my ex-husband, mentally shattered, ended up leaving. However, he still needed to pay alimony and child support, so he reluctantly turned to his affair partner. But then, something unexpected happened to him again. In a desperate state, my ex-husband called me. Jessica, do you know anything? I can't reach Remy, my affair partner. Oh, Remy? Maybe she's with her husband? It seems it was just a fling. Looks like you were conveniently used. My ex-husband was so shocked he couldn't respond for a while. It turned out his affair partner was married, and he was unaware, even considering marriage with her. Ultimately, his motive for the affair was simple: he wanted to remarry a younger, beautiful woman. Ironically, my ex-husband, who thought he was manipulating me, was himself deceived by his affair partner. Truly beyond redemption. Well, Tawny, isn't that good for you? You have nothing left to lose now. It's always been clear, if you do something bad, you have to face the consequences. So, don't call me again, okay? After hanging up, I received continuous messages from him, so I quietly blocked his contact, severing all ties completely. Later, I heard about my ex-husband's whereabouts through the in-laws. He was driven into a corner, unable to properly look for a job, living in a shabby apartment, and doing day labor just to pay off his debts. Meanwhile, back at my parents' house, I was raising the twins with their support. It was overwhelmingly busy, but seeing my children grow up healthy and happy gave me new energy. Years later, I remarried, and now I'm living happily with my new family. Of course, not everything is smooth sailing, and there will be challenges ahead. But it makes me think again. Being able to share joy, sorrow, and hardship is what being a couple and a family is all about.